it's Abbi J, your life coach here, and today I've been just thinking about back to school and the best, most condensed tips that I could give you to really help you start off the school year right. And one of those that I want to share with you is the rule of 3 cards. And this is something that I learned from my mother, who was an educator for 30 years. And this is a rule that she continually saw in her classrooms over and over and over and over again. So I'm going to share with you what is the rule of 3 cards and how it can change your life. I use this as an adult, but how it can change your life, especially when it comes to class and figuring out where do you fall in that social circle around you. The question on your mind, I'm sure, is what in the world is this rule of 3 cards? And it's this. I want you to pretend that every single time that you walk into your class at school or your church group on Sunday, or whenever you're hanging out with a group of friends, whenever you're kind of in this setting of people, that you pretend that you have 3 imaginary pretend cards, and these are participation cards is a good way to think about it. And here I'm going to give you some examples, because this rule I feel like is easier explained in examples than it is saying this is what it is black and white. But in my most condensed black and white version I can give you is that it's this rule that whatever setting you're in, try to participate and use those 3 cards, but don't use more, right? Once we use those 3 cards, we start to get into a territory of being annoying, of being a brown noser, of being somebody that people are just annoyed and bugged by because they're getting too much of you. Now, could anybody ever get too much of you? No, you're amazing, right? But as human beings, we don't like it when somebody raises their hand every single time. We don't like it when somebody's a show-off or a know-it-all, right? So this is a really good tip to just keep you grounded, to say, you know what, I've kind of used my 3 cards for the day. And also, if you're a shy, one of my shy girls out there that, reaches out to me and they're like, Abbi, I just don't want to be shy anymore. I want to work on this. This is a really great way to exercise those muscles and say, okay, I'm going to aim to use my 3 pretend participation cards every time I'm in class. So let me give you a couple examples. And I think in those examples, you're going to see why this is going to be a life-changing social skill for you. My first is this. Let's pretend you walk into school tomorrow and you're in your English class and you get 3 imaginary participation cards. I know this is probably in your head, so I'll address it right now. Every class, it's like a restart button and you get 3 more. So it's not like you get 3 out of 3 throughout the whole day. It's like my English class or my theater class or my lunch group or my math class. And it's like every time you go into that room, it's like you restart, and imaginary me hands you 3, participation cards at the front of that class. So we walk into our English class, we have our 3 cards. And so maybe you raise your hand and answer a question. Awesome. You used one of your cards. Maybe later on, there's kind of more free time in the class, and so then you say a joke and the class laughs, or your group of friends, or you're noticed in some way, kind of more casually. You used a second participation card, okay? And then lastly, let's pretend that everybody's presenting and today just happens to be your day that you get to go up and present for your group, right? Or you get to go and stand in front of the class. You just used your 3rd participation card. So that's a really great way, and I would encourage you to use those 3 participation cards, right? So that you are seen, you're getting noticed by your teachers, you're getting noticed by your peers, you can have a positive experience in the classroom. But if that was my day in English class, I wouldn't at that point raise my hand again to answer another question, unless specifically my teacher called on me, right? At that point, I wouldn't try to stand out or be noticed in making another joke or, standing up to present again, or in weird situations like that, because I've used my 3 participation cards. And you will notice there's a reason I give you 3 of them. 3 is plenty for people to know you, to see you, and to feel like, man, that class, Abbi was a big contributor to the class today, without tipping that scale of being too much. And that's what I'm trying to help you avoid, right? And that's why this rule is so golden. It can help you avoid being, a know-it-all, annoying, You know, somebody that gets on the nerves of your peers, because let's face it, even the best people in the world can get on our nerves if they raise their hand for every question, or if they are just always the one talking or always the one doing all the things, right? We just as human beings, we don't like that, okay? We can dive into that in another video, but just believe me on that one. We don't like that, right? We don't like it when somebody gets too much attention. Now, if you're shy, it helps you on the other hand to stand out, to say, you know what, 3 is my goal. Maybe to start out, 2 is your goal, right? To use those participation cards. Now, in that same example of English class, maybe I just raised my hand 3 times. That's all, right? Or maybe sometimes too, if somebody like indirectly references you, that can be a way to use your participation card too. So like pretend your buddies in the class and they share a story with the group and you're part of that story. That is kind of using one of your participation cards. So just kind of use this as your gauge. And I'll share a couple more examples with you. So this one happened to me because I use this tip in real life all the time. And I was at church. I was sitting there with my women's group and they were teaching a lesson and I had a comment. So I raised my hand. I said a comment. I also knew that this teacher for this lesson had asked me to play like a piano piece at the very end. So I knew that that was a piece coming up. And so further on in the lesson, I was like, oh, I have this story I could share and I think it would contribute to the lesson. And I mentally made that choice. I said, okay, if I raise my hand and share this story, which I think I'm going to use my second participation card. And since I'm playing the piano later, that's my third. And I'm not going to participate more than that, other than being attentive, listening, smiling, laughing at the teacher's jokes, right? Doing those things. But I don't want this to turn into the Abbi show, right? And especially with a big one, like I had that piano piece at the end, it can really easily turn into like, let me, shine. And so I did raise my hand, and because I'm a firm believer in helping teachers out and being noticed and saying what's on your heart and mind, but I made that conscious choice knowing that I had used my 3 participation cards. Now, is this like set in stone, black and white? You're gonna be in so much trouble if you say 5 things today in English class. No, but this is just a really good rule of thumb, especially if you're one of my babes. That's a little bit of a know-it-all. That's a little bit of like, loves to raise your hand, loves to be, somebody noticed in that kind of way. I'm not discouraging that. I'm just saying for your peers to maximize how much your peers like you, to maximize your participation in the class with no negative side, like feedback of like, oh, she'll raise her hand or she knows it all or she just thinks she's so smart or man, that was like the Abbi show today. Stick to 3. So the purpose of this video, I just wanted to give you this really quick social tip, but I hope you know that this will change your life. I mentioned this earlier, but I got this tip from my mother. She's been an educator and school teacher for 30 years, and she taught me this tip. I remember one day I came home from school and I said, Mom, I kind of feel like, I think somebody had said a negative comment. Like I raised my hand a lot, I had presented, I participated, and then I think finally by the end of the day in elementary school, somebody was like, ugh, Abbi again, or something like that. And so I talked to my mom about it, and she said, you know what, Abbi, you should honor you, right? But she said, I've noticed that with being a teacher and watching and observing and my perception of students, she says, you have 3 cards a day. You have 3 cards for each class and you should use those cards, but you got to be really careful and make very conscious choices when you go over those 3 cards, because then people, they start to say mean things or they start to be like, oh my gosh, here goes Abbi again. Does that matter? Is that justified? No, right? But I just find that this rings so true that if we use our 3 participation cards, we're getting noticed in the right ways and we're not experiencing any of those like negative social, mental like traps that a lot of us can get sucked into. So use this rule of 3. If you have questions, leave them for me down below. I love to answer comments when I see them. So please, give this a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you are a teenager looking to master high school and beyond. That is what my channel is dedicated to. So I'd be honored to be your life coach. And I cannot wait to see you in my next video. So, Abbi J out.